You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet. Ahead of India's 75th Republic Day celebrations, France's President Emmanuel Macron shared the initiatives to invite 30,000 Indian students to study in France, an announcement he made a month after Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Paris as the chief guest of France's National Day last year. The French president explained that how new centers with a network of alliances and international classes are being developed in the country to learn French. He added that France would also facilitate visa process for Indian alumni in the country. Macron also said that France has 35 universities in the QS ranking and about 15 in the Times Higher Education ranking. Earlier in September 2023, after the announcement, the French embassy in India rolled out a number of measures, including a 5-year short-stay Schengen visa to attract more Indian students. The initiatives are part of people-to-people ties envisioned as one of the 3 pillars of strategic partnership between the two nations. As we jump into this discussion today, we are going to talk about what opportunities do the students have as they move to France. We'll talk about this with some special guests. Joining us at this point in time is Marina, international affairs expert and French journalist. Marina, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with us. Well, it's a heartening initiative, of course, which is something that India appreciates and recognizes. 30,000 students is a lot of students in the next few years. We have about 10,000 students right now in France. What do you make of this announcement, and how is this basically going to cement and, further the people-to-people connect between our two great democracies? Of course, there are a whole lot of other MOUs and agreements which the two leaders have signed which relate to defense, but this is obviously directly connected with people-to-people initiatives.
Absolutely. It's a cultural exchange, it's educational exchange, which is obviously just as important as any other kind of this cooperation that they've been talking about during this meeting. Well, first of all, I think that, we talked about 30,000 Indian students in France by 2030, which is quite an ambitious number. France would like also to put in place numerous exchange programs to encourage researchers, especially in science and technologies, create also a community of Indian alumni. So, for example, they would like to deliver Schengen visas to students that would be valid up to 5 years if they had studied previously in France for at least 1 semester. So all of this is quite encouraging. Macron also envisages creating international classes at the universities so that Indian students could receive French language training. Also, he'd like to put in place mutual recognition of diplomas, professional qualifications, which would definitely encourage the mobility and the exchange between the countries. So, of course, this is all very positive, I think, for both India and France. And let's see where it brings us. If this exchange can really take place, I think it would be a wonderful thing for both countries, obviously.
Marina, what would you say, to convince students who want to study in France? They have a lot of options all over the world. What would you say to students who want to go to France and study there for a better future? Of course, a number of things and impediments come to mind. Language is something that needs to be tackled with. And of course, the primary area where Indian students prefer to usually go are countries, which are English speaking. What would you say to those students who want to come to France and pursue a better life?
Well, obviously, it's an additional, if you speak an extra language, it's a wonderful thing. And if President Macron does put in place this program at the universities that would encourage students to learn French, that would be an amazing thing. I'm a professor at HEC Paris. I teach communications, and we actually have a lot of international students. They can also take classes in English, but if they would like to, they can also learn French, which is obviously a very positive thing. I think that we have a huge French-speaking community all over the world, and it cannot hurt. So for sure, it's a plus. Then, of course, we have all these francophone, in francophone countries, especially in France, we have hospitality that's wonderful. We have very rich culture. We have a history that might be also very interesting. So it's kind of about getting out of your comfort zone, trying something completely new, learning a new language, why not, immersing yourself into kind of this different atmosphere, different culture, and that's what cultural exchange is all about. It's not staying close to home with a language you already know, but it's kind of breaking the boundaries and trying something completely different.
Right. And Marina, what would you say to the Indian students, who would perhaps want to also get acclimatized to the culture in France? I've been to Paris multiple times since childhood, so I understand there's going to be a big disparity from what they have in India and what they can expect in France. What advice would you like to give on that front?
Well, it depends where they go. If they come to Paris, Paris is a very complicated place. I mean, as all capitals, it's very busy, it's hectic, it's very hard to find an apartment. So it depends. So you have to have some money put aside to be in a place like Paris. But, I would recommend really just being open-minded and embracing the culture, embracing all the newness of the experience, especially when you're young. Myself, I came to Paris. I'm not French, so I came to Paris when I was 24, and I just remember discovering Paris, discovering Louvre, discovering like Champs-Élysées, and how wonderful it was. It was really an amazing experience, and of course, it's not always easy, but I think it can be very enriching, historically, culturally speaking. And hopefully, we can, again, it's also vice versa, right? Why not French students coming and discovering India, which would be a wonderful opportunity also for them to, in a different cultural environment, yeah.
You're absolutely right. It has to be both ways. Pari Banot, a student from France, is also joining us at this point in time. Pari, happy to speak to you once again. You are in France as of now. There is a lot of information that can be shared by you for students who want to go to France and pursue higher education in that country. What would you like to tell them? You've been there for quite some time now. How has it been? And this initiative which both the governments are working upon, how can this be facilitated by some of the facilities and inputs that you can share with us?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Vineet. It's indeed great to be back. So you're right. I am studying in France as we speak. I'm currently in Paris, and that's where my university is. I'm enrolled at Sciences Po. And the course that I'm actually pursuing is in international affairs, but also in journalism. So I'm here for my master's. It's been a great experience, Vineet. For me personally, when I was choosing what I wanted to do after having worked in India for a couple of years, it was about the experience, it was about the opportunity, but it was also about the course that I wanted to pursue. So as far as the experience is concerned, the main idea of choosing the university that I did choose was that there's a big international cohort, which means that there are students not just from France or Paris, but also from all of Europe, the students from America, the students from India, the students from other countries that fall in the Southeast Asia as well as South Asia. So it was about experience for me, Vineet, but then also it was about the opportunity. Even Macron, when he was speaking in India, I think a big takeaway from that was the fact that he said that it's going to be a gateway to Europe. Now, it's not necessarily a gateway, but you do realize that the opportunities are tremendous. So if you were to study in France, that would mean that you had opportunities to work not just in France, but also in the European Union. So that was, of course, something for me. But the biggest driving factor, at least for me, was the course that I was choosing, the sort of master's and the specialization that I wanted to do, and where this could take me forward in my career.
All right. Sumit Peer, political commentator, joins us on the show. Dr. Sharad Kohli, senior economist, with us on the platform as well. Mr. Rabindra Sachdev, international affairs expert, also joining us on the show at this point in time. Dr. Kohli, I'll begin with you, sir. I hope you can hear me. Dr. Kohli?
Yes, I can hear you, Vineet.
Well, France and India, oldest and one of the two of the most, vibrant democracies throughout the world, have a lot in common. The commons are perhaps more than the uncommons, but the fact of the matter is, for Indian students, choosing a location where to pursue their higher education has always been a conversation and a dilemma. This new announcement that comes by the visit of the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, of having 30,000 students in the country in the next few years. How does this change the dynamics of not only this relationship but of Indian intelligence in France? We have seen what Indian intelligence has done to countries like the United States and Canada.
Well, thank you so much, Vineet, and good evening to all the NewsX viewers. Well, I think as far as the hand of friendship is concerned, it's a very welcome move. I mean, especially in the times when we saw Canada putting a curb on the number of students and, all sorts of things happening between, at the Canadian, with the Canadian government at the diplomatic level. Let's not dwell into that. But, pardon me for being a devil's advocate today. And I think I will seek pardon from Pari and from Marina as well. This whole concept of the Indians' brain drain, and Marina briefly touched upon that. The brain drain happening from India. I have a question here. If 30,000 students are allowed to go to France, who can afford this? That's my first question. The answer to that is somebody who's got a few crores in the bank. That's the answer to my first question. My second question is, why should you go? The answer to that question is because you feel that probably that country is giving you better education than India. My answer to that is no. I'm sorry. I love to play devil's advocate because that's what I believe. I'll speak what I believe in. Number three, why are you so excited about being on the foreign land? I would again seek pardon from Pari. I hope she'll pardon me later for playing this devil's advocate today. What is the fancy about going abroad? I mean, this 30,000 and in a situation, Vinny, where we all know, and I think Marina would endorse my view, three problems are plaguing France as of now. First problem, unemployment. France would be more protective about its own people. Unemployment is rampant in France at this moment. I'm sure President Macron is conscious of this fact because these students on a 5-year Schengen short stay visa, they would seek jobs here and there. And when they seek jobs, it's the French people who feel bad that these were our jobs. These are being taken away by people from India. And that's what, breeds hatred in so many countries. So I think unemployment is the first problem. Sluggish competitiveness is the second problem which France is facing right now. The GDP growth of France over the last few years, I'm sure people who study French economics, they are aware. It's not hunky-dory at this point of time. So in such a situation, imagine all 30,000 students, although that's not going to happen. Imagine all 30,000 students, Vineet, they'll land up, let's say, next year, or let's say in 2024. I'm being very, very hypothetical as of now. So 30,000 students landing there, they finish their studies by 2025 or 2026, doing a 2-year or a 1-year course, about 72 odd universities in France. And they come out and all of them, they seek the 5-year visa. You can imagine the situation in France with regard to employment. There are very limited, population is less than 7 crores, very limited employment opportunities. I mean, it's not that jobs are overflowing in France. So my concept is that I think it's a very welcome hand, first of all. I do not diplomatically defy this offer. I really welcome it. And I congratulate President Macron for extending that hand. He knows that Canada has been playing rogue at this point of time. So therefore very welcome. But then the fact of the matter is, Indian education system today, and some of the Indian institutes provide some of the world's best education today. Why should we look at somebody going to France and making a good career? Why can't you make this career in India? I mean, are all the CEOs educated in America or Europe? That's not the case. We have some of the most successful stories in startups and in the industry who have been born, brought up, and they have studied here. So my point is, whereas I welcome the move, I congratulate, and I appreciate the diplomatic hand being extended by the French president during his visit. Very respected. And I respect the friendship of India and France as well. But then, I feel that I do not fancy this offer of 30,000 students because France will find itself very difficult. I also do not fancy the Indian families having this craze to push their children out of the country just because they can afford it. Vineet, over to you.
All right. Sumit Peer, do you concur with the premise that Dr. Kohli has given that, education is stellar in our own country? People like...
By the way, I see Marina smiling away. I'm not sure if she supports or she's...
I'll come back to it. Let me also take a response from Sumit and then we'll go to Marina as well. Sumit, do you think that it is a fair argument that, on one hand, of course, is the argument, why go abroad at all if you have a good education system in our country? And the second aspect of this is, why go to France?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show, Jai Sierra. The point here is that in a democracy, you give people options. There have been a sizable number of options which have been cut in Canada. So as a country, you have to create those options. So the options are created with France, which is very good. So we have given a message to Americans, and we are giving a message to anybody. Look, you have to walk the talk with India. You cannot have this double whammy with India, wherein you are supporting Khalistanis, where we are supporting anti-India elements, and you also want our money. It can't happen. Now we are doing business with France. You have to take care of.
But Sumit and Dr. Kohli, respectfully, education is also a business for countries.
Yeah, that's what I'm
just like defense is a business. With that logic, you would also want to say, manufacture everything in India. Why import?
I'm coming to that. Look, education is a business. So when you want our money, you should also welcome India. So if you look at the mobility pact, if you look at the sanction visa and all, this is what France can extend to you as an option. Now, taking the option or not taking the option is your hand. Checking the viability of option is again in your hand. How good the option is for you. What are the short-term and long-term implications? That is for every parent and every student to decide. But if you ask me, principally, I agree with Dr. Kohli. Today, the kind of options we have in India, they are much better and much cheaper. Personally, for my kids, so I would not consider, for any going out of India because there are too many options here. I don't need to do it. So that is what my limited take is. But as at a government level, you have to create options, you have to create opportunities. That is very welcome. We welcome that move. Great. I'm fully with it. But when you look at the viability of it and all, it might not be a good thing. So we had to give an answer to Canadians. We have given an answer to Canadians. Look, there's one more angle to it. This Americans wanted to give us the GE engine. They did not. Then the crystal blade technology did not come. French came in. They came in with the saffron. Saffron is increasing the manufacturing in India. So we are getting our jet engine. So we are sending a message to the world. Look, India can create options. Now to avail those options or not, that is within your realms of logic and imagination. What do you want to do? But for a government, option is there. You want to study here, good. You want to go there if you really want to go and go there, the government has created option for you. That is my limited take on this. But in the long run, when you do the cost benefit analysis, when you do the adaptability, culture and all those things, I think वही मैं हमेशा से कहता हूँ विनीत जी सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा. This is not first time. I've been always saying this on all the shows because what you get in India at what cost you get in India, there is perfectly no match to it, and it's by 2030. So let me tell you one thing. With all the conviction on my command, India will be the education hub of the world. We will be not only the idea, we will be the education hub of the world. There will be people who will be coming here. Look, we have already given to Ulka and one more university to open campus here. The UGC rules have been revised. Within 5 years, you will have at least 50 to 100 top branded universities having campus here. So things are going to change. But as the option, it's welcome. As an opportunity, it's welcome. As a gesture, it's welcome. Democracy is talking to each other is welcome. Diplomatically, it is welcome. Practically, feasibility, that's an individual call. That will change from person to person. But the people in Canada got the message. And like this, people in America got the message with G engines. So this India, which is resolute and resilient, can create options. There are people, you don't walk our way, there are people who will come and roll the red carpet for us. That is the message which has gone. And this is what France can do for you because look, it's a small country with a small population. It cannot accommodate millions of people. But Mr. Macron's, initiative is very welcome. That is the best he can stretch. And he has written this ambitious target. I can stretch that one. So at that level, we are okay. But, at a cost benefit level and all, I think we have to all really do a lot of introspective and Vineet. Honestly, studying abroad and settling abroad and rising the ladder abroad, there are three different paradigms. It's not so straightforward. It's not a linear equation, unfortunately. But we in a democracy, we leave it to the wise discretion of the people. They can choose whatever they want. But as a government, the options have been created. As a fellow democracy, they have responded. They have responded in time. And let's not forget that in Canada, the 60% of the money which runs Canadian universities used to come from Indian students. Now this year, we have 86% of the students who have not opted for Canada. And if you still want to go out and if you still feel there's a future out, well, the government of India has created options for you and the government of India will keep on creating options for you. But do your mathematics, do your numbers, do your things. I really do not feel there is, my education is inferior and the education there is superior. I don't buy to that logic. Okay. I respectfully disagree with that.
Okay. All right. Let me quickly get a reaction from Mr. Sachdev as well, and then I want to hear from Marina as well as to what she says to what all our panelists have said. Mr. Sachdev.
Thank you so much, Vinit. A brilliant discussion. Firstly, I would look at education in probably a wider context. To my mind, yes, in India, if that's one question, India, yes, we can have amazing, education with our institutions, but I still think, there's a saying, travel makes a man or woman wiser. So generally speaking, in the roundedness, the global mindset, global thinking of our present and future generations, and in this globally interconnected world, I think there is value, there's deep value to an education outside India also. But it's not to say that all of us should be rushing. It depends upon each, and as Shar said very rightly, the issue is that how many can afford such education. But whatever it be, if you have the opportunity to travel, and to my take is that, and get education in some institution, it's not about India or the West or the East. I'll say go to Philippines, go to Brazil, go Indonesia, go France, go Germany, go America, anywhere, go Mali. That opens up your global thinking a lot. This culture shock, I teach culture and culture shock and reverse culture shock. The more culture shock you have, the wider and more enriched you get in your minds. So that's my first. But secondly, yes, given geopolitics and all, we do clearly understand. See, 30,000 students, if I was just running the numbers, assuming a 70,000, 80,000 euro per year, and Pari and Marina can maybe give the numbers, that translates into something like about $2 billion odd dollars coming into the French economy. Fair enough. France would calculate. Why not calculate that? That's one. Second, Sharad mentioned and touched upon the point of that it's become a sluggish economy. Yes, the whole, in a sense, in the world, there's a competition for talent. So France also wants talent, right? And high-end talent for whatsoever purposes be. So that be it. So it's a mixed bag which is outgoing there. Jobs, yes, I do think also with respect to Europe, probably the jobs are lesser for Indians who go there and study, primarily because of the reason that, English, if it's English, then the only place you have is maybe the UK. Right, where you can get the jobs and whatever the size of the UK economy. If in France you study, and the idea is that it will be in English or semi-English, French and all, still what are the opportunities for you in terms of jobs? In that sense, the US is a much better magnet because it's a much bigger economy and much bigger opportunities there for jobs. The other element I think we've touched upon here is the question of brain drain. There used to be a time in India when we would definitely very much, feel unhappy that our talent is, exiting. But then what we discovered in the late 90s, early 2000s and all, that India benefited hugely from this brain drain. From Silicon Valley, guys who set up the US-India relation, the bridge, even the technology and business bridge was initiated by the Indian diaspora in Silicon Valley. Y2K, I don't know how many of us remember, was supposed to be the day when the world will come to a stop. And Indian companies got zillions of dollars of business. I was myself in the US in those times. So we know how that set up and opened a pathway to, the call centers, to the BPO businesses and collaboration software across cultures. So brain drain is a yes and no. It's okay. It circulates. Let's say.
Okay. Let's take a response from Marina on what all has been said. It's specifically what was enunciated by Dr. Kohli as well. Marina, how do you respond to what Dr. Kohli has said, that if India has a good enough education system, we don't need to look outside. It doesn't matter what country it is. No offense to France.
Totally disagree with this. I have lived in 4 countries in my life. I immigrated, I changed countries, languages, etc. So of course I totally disagree with this idea of staying inside one country, even if it's amazing. It's not a question of better or worse, it's a question of difference. And I think in a current more and more globalized context, it's extremely important to learn new languages, to understand different mentalities, to work with different kinds of people. And you cannot get it if you're simply going to stay in your country, even if your country is amazing. Plus, what I wanted to say is that the idea is not to stay in France and to get employed in France. The idea is to come and study and then possibly go back to India with this newly acquired knowledge to enrich India. So it's not, it's not a question because Dr. Kohli tackled this idea of unemployment in France, which is true, but it's not about Macron is not offering students jobs after graduation. What he's saying is I'm opening this opportunity for you guys to come to study at French universities and then possibly take this knowledge back. US has one of the best educational systems in the world, top universities, and students still go study abroad. And also one thing, because we've been talking about economic side of studies, well, in France, most universities are free. I mean, mostly free, 300 euros per year that you have to pay for, like, to study in Sorbonne. This is ridiculous compared to most universities worldwide, where, like, American universities, where it would cost you $60,000 a year to go to UCLA or Columbia, for example. Right, so like the rates are so different, except of course if you choose like a private university, private school. But the socialist system makes it free, basically, also for students coming from abroad. So it's of course the cost of living, etc., etc. I mean, it adds up, but then it's an investment into your future. So in a way, I would say that it's definitely a great initiative. It is about opening up your mind to something else, coming back, bringing this knowledge to your country, and vice versa. I mean, I talked also about French students going to India, and I know quite a lot who have been actually doing this.
That's a unique perspective you've given, Marina. In fact, let me also rope in Pari once again. Pari, it's not about, not getting a required level of education in India. It's perhaps also about breaking the monotony, breaking the mold, figuring out, how to ideate, how to in fact, look at the world from a different cultural perspective that also is to be thrown in, if somebody is going from India and, studying abroad.
Yes, Vineet, there are multiple things, and of course, every person's situation is different, motivations differ. But if I may have the privilege to just talk about myself, I have studied from some of the best universities in India also, if I may say so. I've worked in India, and I think the motivation for me personally was not, to glorify an education outside of India or to find a job necessarily. It was, like you said, it was more about finding people from different parts of the world, connecting with them, also understanding their perspective. It's also really crucial to be in a space where you can understand what different views of India are, of people that are not particularly from India. I think that gives you a lot of insight, which for me, I think has been one of the biggest takeaways. Also the fact that there's a student cohort that comes from across the world. As far as, finances, I think in this discussion, we've touched a lot upon finances. So there's always options in the sense that there are scholarships that are offered. I think between India and France alone, there are close to 8 scholarships that are offered, and this is not counting the Erasmus scholarship that exists. So of course, there are options, there are opportunities, and every case is different. We cannot judge them based on a single parameter. And also everybody's motivations are different. For me personally, Vineet, it was more about getting some sort of a specialization. The specialization did exist in India, but my choices were made in the sense that I wanted to know what it would be like to be a student, to be an international student, to be a student that is not just studying in India, but also outside of India. So that, I think, for me, Vineet, was the biggest motivation. And, of course, the Indian diaspora across the world, we've talked so much about the Indian diaspora, and I think the Indian diaspora has a big role to play as far as India's development is also concerned, but also the exchange of ideas from India to countries outside of India. I think that it's important that Indian voices, the echo, not just in India, but also outside of India. So I think students like me help bridge that gap.
Okay, Dr. Kohli, how do you respond to that? In fact, going abroad is not something which, is a new phenomenon, Dr. Kohli. Mahatma Gandhi went to London to study law. Let's not forget that the University of Calcutta offered the same courses that the University of London offered at that particular time as well, and that is the 19th century.
Well, Vineet, I don't want to comment on Mahatma Gandhi, neither do I want to comment on Pari. It is everybody's, as somebody rightly said, it's their personal preference as to what they feel will probably raise their intellectual levels, will give them more knowledge, will give them more exposure, and so and so. I think the discussion slightly wavered, because I never meant not to travel abroad. I travel abroad every month. What I was trying to say, because I was doing a debate on India's transformation over the last 10 years, and one of the questions which came a very pertinent question, which I think all my panelists will agree that how do you fill up the gap between the haves and have-nots in this country? Now tell me, this doesn't apply to Paridhi, by the way. Paridhi has gone for a different purpose. She's gone for a different motive, and I'm sure she's going to come back and she's had some of the best education. But tell me one thing. Students and children who've come back after studying from there. Now I'm talking of the people who've come back. Let me not talk of the people who want to settle down, because Marina said it's not about settling down. It's about getting the education and coming back. Now the students who have come back, tell me, when they stand amongst their peers, do they not flaunt it? And is that education not put on the top on your CV? That I am educated from Stanford, I am educated from Oxford, I am educated from Harvard, I am educated from so-and-so. Now, what does that do? That puts the Indian students behind in the queue. Because these universities, with due respect to all of them, I don't mean to disrespect any university or a country for that matter, they are put on a different pedestal. That is precisely, Vineet, what I meant. I didn't mean, people should not travel abroad. Well, it's Atmanirbhar Bharat. So Atmanirbhar Bharat about education also. If we are Atmanirbhar, we should be Atmanirbhar on education also. I think to kill the gap between the haves and have-nots, as I said, Paridhi is lucky. She could afford this kind of money. And so many other students are lucky. But what about the millions and millions of students who cannot afford? This is what I meant, because they feel inferior. Or if you put it the other way, some of the students, they feel superior. Not Paridhi, of course. But some of the students, when they come back, they feel themselves as superior. Oh, I was educated there. You studied in a Delhi government school. You studied in a government school in a Delhi university, or so and so forth. I think that is what is creating a social problem as well, Vineet, is what I meant. I'm not against travel abroad. I'm not against importing your your brain.
We've run out of time. I want to take Sumit Peer. He's got his hand up. Sumit, hurry up. Sumit, quickly, please.
The point we are trying to make is that the French education is not better, superior, or a superlative of Indian education. It's an option. You take it, you live it. But that positioning should not happen that you're lucky, privileged, and elite, that you've studied in French, and when you come back, you're better than the millions. That is the point Dr. Kohli is trying to make.
That is not the only parameter, Sumit, that's going to put you above everybody else. There are multiple parameters. There are multiple parameters that you can earn in India as well that will put you ahead of others. All right. So let's not make it about that. Go on.
So that is the point we are trying to make, Vinny. That's a limited point. So, having this as option is good, but considering option as anything from West is the best, that is where the problem is.
Okay. Mr. Sachdev, quickly, sir.
Quick, a few bullet points.
No, sir. Just 1 point, sir. 1 point. That's it.
Okay, sure. I studied in the US. I ran a wireless startup company. I'm a successful, reasonably, if I could say, technology entrepreneur in the US. And some of us here in the panel, and Vinit also, perhaps you know me. And I've come back. But I don't think how often I flaunt. Yeah, probably a lot of people may flaunt, but there are a lot of people who are just here and who are happy to share.
So I went to the US. I did my... It's not about flaunting. I did my post-graduation in California.
Exactly.
It's not something about flaunting.
It's coming back and giving and engaging and being pushy. Yeah, why not?
It's about a better life for yourself. I think that's what it boils down to. That's what it boils down to. And in the end, I think you end up servicing your own country one way or the other. Well, we have run out of time. It's a very interesting debate, but unfortunately, we have time constraints. We'd like to thank everyone, especially Marina and Paridhi, for joining us all the way from France. We take a short break on that note. Be right back.